we have breaking news that we're following in Sean Diddy Combs' racketeering and sex trafficking trial. In just moments, Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, is set to retake the stand and face what we expect to be her final round of questioning under cross-examination. Court currently is on a short lunch break, but if you recall, the judge previously said that he wanted Ventura's cross-examination to wrap up.
In the glittering world of hip-hop, few names have echoed louder than Sean Diddy Combs. A self-made mogul, music innovator, and cultural icon, his success has been unmatched. But now, inside a Brooklyn federal courtroom, Diddy is facing the fight of his life. Cassie Ventura, his former girlfriend of over a decade, has come forward with allegations that have shaken the entire entertainment industry to its core. Her testimony, filled with painful memories, federal accusations, and explosive evidence, has placed Diddy at the center of a national conversation. Is this the downfall of a legend, or a misunderstood relationship under the harsh light of public scrutiny?
Before lunch today, prosecutors have said that Ventura, who's nearly 9 months pregnant, could soon go into labor.
Over the last hour, the defense has been asking Ventura more about her 2018 rape allegation against Combs, Ventura's drug use, her mental health problems, and a 2014 threat that she made to a man who claimed he had seen a sexually explicit tape of her, also raised in court.
Cassie testified for nearly 20 hours, through tears, tension, and cross-examinations. She alleged that what started as a romantic relationship quickly devolved into control, abuse, and coercion. According to her, Diddy orchestrated a dark ritual he called freak-offs, where escorts were hired and Cassie was forced into disturbing sexual situations, often under the influence of MDMA. She described instances of violence, blackmail, and psychological manipulation, testifying that she often feared for her safety, her career, and her identity. For many watching, her bravery felt like a turning point, a moment of reckoning in a culture that has long protected powerful men.
I think the defense naturally is trying to poke holes sort of in some of the earlier testimony that Sean Combs was always the person in control and that Cassie Ventura was forced into these situations. So the defense all day have really been laying out a lot of text messages and a lot of emails that tell the story of a very complicated relationship from the very beginning. In fact, in 2007, they showed the jurors an email where Ventura basically says after 2 months of having a kiss with Combs and saying that's when their relation started after her 21st birthday. After their relation started 2 months later, jurors saw an email where she basically says, I love you. I'm so excited to be a part of this relationship with you. How she had plans of a future with him.
But Diddy's legal team didn't stay silent. In court, they painted a very different picture, arguing that Cassie was a willing participant, not a victim. They played a 2014 audio recording where Cassie threatened a man over a sex tape, screaming, "I'll kill you, I'll put you in a desert." That moment stunned the courtroom. It complicated the narrative, especially for jurors. Was this the voice of a traumatized woman, or someone with more agency than the prosecution claimed? The defense leaned heavily on text messages, shared vacations, and loving exchanges between Cassie and Diddy, even after alleged abuse, to cast doubt on her credibility.
So they're laying out somebody that was excited about the idea of being with Sean Combs at 21 years old and her future plans, but also a little bit of jealousy. In that same email, she makes reference to wondering if maybe Combs should have went after her friend, Carrie, and then said maybe you should have went with Carrie because she could help you or, do the things that you want her to do or something to that effect. But she also said, which I thought was really interesting in that email, Rachel, is I want to be the woman that you want me to be. Like almost this idea of teach me what it is I need to be to keep you happy. And that was 2 months into the relationship.
Then came the raid that changed everything. In September 2024, Homeland Security agents raided Diddy's hotel suite at the Park Hyatt in Manhattan. What they found was shocking. 5 bottles of baby oil, pink MDMA baggies, lube, burner phones, a hard drive, and prescription medications registered to the alias Frank Black. The visuals shown in court mirrored Cassie's claims with eerie accuracy. Prosecutors argued this wasn't a man with a wild past. It was a man still living. That lifestyle in the present. The evidence felt damning, especially when presented alongside Cassie's vivid recollections.
Asking her about mental health treatment that she received, this therapy for post-traumatic stress disorder, Why would they go with that line of questioning? How does that benefit their defense of Combs?
Great question, Boris, because it could go to her credibility and her memory's reliability. And so here they're trying to paint her out as somebody who may not be remembering all the details as they actually occurred. Maybe somebody whose memory isn't all that great. They want the jury to think, well, maybe she's somewhat of a basket case after all of this. And maybe what she's telling us we can't rely on because maybe it's not exactly true. So by them wanting to go through the therapy she's been through, there was a mention of EMDR that deals with eye movements and recalling memories.
Just when it felt like the trial couldn't get more dramatic, Dawn Richard took the stand. A former member of Danity Kane and someone who had worked closely with Diddy, she told the jury about a 2009 incident she witnessed firsthand. According to Dawn, Diddy erupted over a missing breakfast order, grabbed a skillet, and struck Cassie while screaming in front of others. When questioned why she never called police, Dawn answered simply, "He told us. People go missing." That single quote hit like thunder. The prosecution claimed it demonstrated Diddy's coercive power over those around him, while the defense called it dramatic embellishment.
What he's exactly charged with, who's going to testify, what this case is going to look like. But before we get to those questions, we want to remind everybody how we got here.
A new lawsuit filed by R&B singer Cassie.
Cassie describing the music mogul as a vicious, cruel, and controlling man.
The whole criminal case against Sean Combs starts with a civil case brought by his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, alleging that she was in an abusive relationship with Sean Combs.
And just a day after word of a settlement.
The lawsuit was settled with no admission of wrongdoing. That lawsuit settled almost instantaneously, but it gave federal prosecutors in Manhattan a window into the kind of conduct that went on, allegedly, in Sean Combs' life.
New civil lawsuits.
A series of new civil lawsuits facing new lawsuits from 6 accusers.
Once Cassie filed her lawsuit, that opened up the floodgates, and there was this avalanche of civil claims that also helped inform prosecutors as they built a criminal case against Sean Combs.
But here's where things get complicated. The jury was shown a series of messages between Diddy and Cassie from 2018 to 2020, even after they had broken up. Diddy wrote, "You're my ride, or die." Cassie replied, "Thank you for the life you helped me build." They shared conversations about yoga, family, and closure. At one point, Cassie even said, "I miss you too." The defense claimed this shows they had a real consenting relationship, that Cassie was hurt, but not trafficked. But psychologists and trauma experts following the case have explained this type of post-abuse contact is common. It's not consent, it's emotional survival.
And so with the defense trying to go down this road, trying to attack her therapy, the government's going to get right back up there and say, well, the only reason she needed to go to therapy and seek EMDR and the other types of therapy was because of the actions of your client, Combs' attorney team. So they're going to go right back at it and say that had she not been so brutally traumatized, she wouldn't have had to seek therapy, and that's a good thing. And certainly anybody on that jury who's ever been to therapy or knows anything about it, they're going to be thinking about how Cassie Ventura could be being traumatized right now, again, in having to relive all of the various questioning for days from both sides. So you're right, Brianna. This is a slippery slope that the defense team is on right now with her.
Julie Grant, great to have you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Outside the courthouse and across social media, America remains divided. Celebrities like Janelle Monáe, Aubrey O'Day, and Keke Palmer have voiced support for Cassie. Is Stand With Cassie has trended on Twitter. But so has Number Free Diddy. Some fans argue that Cassie is chasing attention or money. Others see her as a symbol of female strength. Influencers, podcasts, and news outlets are split. The internet is buzzing, and for every post that says "believe women," there's a comment pushing back with "it's all just toxic love."
Let's bring in attorney Renato Stabile to talk about this further. Renato, thanks for being with us. I wonder what you make of how the cross-examination went for the defense.
Look, I think it went about as well as it could have gone. They did what they needed to do in terms of confronting her with her text messages that undermine her claim that she was being coerced. But remember, the prosecution is going to clean a lot of that up right now on their redirect. They're going to go back over some of those text messages. They're not going to go through all of it. Remember, they said they're only going to spend about an hour, and everybody wants her to get off the stand by the end of today. But they're going to give her an opportunity now to explain why it is that at the same time that she's having these text exchanges that, some are loving, and some of the things she did in terms of setting up these encounters, she was nevertheless being coerced.
As the trial continues, two truths are colliding in a public arena. The truth Cassie believes she lived, and the version Diddy's team insists is closer to reality. Federal prosecutors will soon present more witnesses and expert testimony to support their case. Diddy's lawyers may call Cassie's own husband to the stand to impeach her credibility. That twist alone could shake the trial again. The jury will have to decide not just who's telling the truth, but what truth even looks like in a relationship so blurred by fame, power, and fear.
Televised, but we and a lot of other reporters will be there covering it, and that's how the public will learn not only the evidence against Sean Combs, but we'll be looking for how he reacts to it. We've seen him a lot in court, and he presents fairly upbeat. He comes in with a smile on his face, hugs for his lawyers, gestures to members of his family who have sat in court there to support him. He looks a lot grayer than he did when he was first arrested. You're in jailhouse beige, although at trial he may well be in civilian clothes. But he's treated like any other criminal defendant that we've seen. And we've been there for similar trials for Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's former paramour. We've been in that courthouse for Sam Bankman-Fried, the crypto fraudster, for Bob Menendez, the former United States Senator. All measure of walks of life come in and out of that courthouse. Sean Combs is only the latest.
This isn't just a celebrity scandal. It's a story about manipulation, trauma, reputation, and justice. Whether Diddy is found guilty or not, this case has already left a deep mark. It has exposed cracks in how we perceive power and privacy in the age of celebrity. For Cassie, this trial is about reclaiming agency. For Diddy, it's about defending everything he's built. And for America, it's a reminder that behind the lights, the music, and the millions, real people can get caught in shadows we never see until it's too late.
They have their notebooks in their hand. They're coming in. They're very alert. And I think this is one of those testimonies where you have no choice but to pay attention and almost be flabbergasted, obviously, at some of what you're hearing, because it's not only just insight into somebody's sex life, but the details are disturbing at times, especially during that prosecution testimony when we saw some of the alleged abuse, or we saw pictures of her after a beating of some kind, according to her. But the jurors are definitely paying attention. I don't see anyone that's not keeping their focus on Cassie Ventura. And also I noticed them taking notes a lot of times.
And the children, as they were exiting court yesterday, two of the girls were seen crying. How emotional have they been in court?
Again, I cannot imagine if that was my father or somebody close to me up there and having to hear details of their sex life.
The courtroom atmosphere remains tense as each side prepares for what could be the most pivotal moments of this trial. Federal prosecutors are gearing up to bring in fresh testimony, witnesses whose accounts could further cement the allegations of coercion and abuse. Meanwhile, the defense is strategically readying to challenge the foundation of Cassie's story, including the surprising possibility of calling her husband to the stand. This move aims to cast doubt on her credibility and question her motives, a gambit that could shift public perception and influence the jury's delicate balance.
She said that she felt suicidal thinking about the life that she had with Sean Combs, and even asked her husband at one point, saying, "You've got this, right? If something were to happen to me, you would be able to take care of these children." And said she tried to and wanted to walk out into traffic, and that her husband had to stop her. That is the long-standing PST that she has had from this relationship.
At the heart of this case lies a question that transcends legal jargon. What does consent truly look like when power is weaponized? When one partner holds immense control over another's career, reputation, and even freedom, the line between willing participation and forced compliance becomes blurred. This trial forces everyone watching, jurors, media, and the public, to grapple with that uncomfortable truth.
In videos or said by witnesses or alleged victims isn't crime, it's consensual sexual activity.
There's not the slightest inkling, according to the interviews that I've done, of anything that's coercive, non-consensual, and it was adults and consensual, and everybody who was there wanted to be there.
Will the jury buy that? We don't know. It will depend in large part on how the alleged victims testify, how they're cross-examined. But so far,
public figures have weighed in, fueling a storm of debate. Supporters laud Cassie's courage, calling her testimony a beacon for survivors everywhere. Critics, however, question the timing, the settlements, and the nature of a relationship lived, so publicly yet shrouded in secrecy. The jury's task is immense, to sift through conflicting narratives, emotional testimony, and complex evidence to uncover a just verdict.
Corroborated in the videos, it's corroborated in the text messages, but I think the former friend is going to corroborate that she didn't want to do these things, maybe that she confided in her as to her state of mind, that she felt she was being forced into these things. So they'll probably have some contemporaneous evidence of what she was going through while these things were happening, despite what is in the text messages.
All right, Renato, thank you so much for your insight. Renato Stabile, we appreciate it.
But this case also serves as a broader reckoning. It reveals how the dynamics of celebrity power can protect and silence, and how difficult it is for truth to emerge when fame is at stake. The outcome will ripple through the entertainment industry and beyond, challenging long-held assumptions about accountability and justice. As the trial marches forward, one thing remains certain: the world will be watching closely, waiting to see whether the scales of justice can balance in a case so tangled by love, fear, and power.
Sound a lot like orgies. Women, according to federal prosecutors, were put into these things. The rooms were stocked with baby oil and other supplies. There were cleanup crews in the end, IVs to help restore people physically after what they were made to do, according to the charges. And the jury is going to hear about all of that.
As the trial intensifies, the prosecution is expected to call new witnesses who will corroborate Cassie's harrowing account. These testimonies may include close friends, industry insiders, and mental health experts, each adding pieces to a puzzle of years-long manipulation and control. The goal is clear: to demonstrate a pattern of coercion that goes beyond isolated incidents and paints a broader picture of exploitation.
I think the defense naturally is trying to poke holes sort of in some of the earlier testimony that Sean Combs was always the person in control and that Cassie Ventura was forced into these situations. So the defense all day have really been laying out a lot of text messages and a lot of emails that tell the story of a very complicated relationship from the very beginning. In fact, in 2007, they showed the jurors an email where Ventura basically says after 2 months of having a kiss with Combs and saying that's when their relation started after her 21st birthday.
Meanwhile, the defense's looming strategy to introduce Cassie's husband as a witness adds an unprecedented twist. By potentially challenging her version of events from within her personal life, the defense seeks to undermine her reliability and question the motivations behind her allegations. This move could sway jurors' perceptions, injecting doubt into an already complex narrative.
How hard is that for a jury to be convinced of? The idea that because there are some times where she may seem like a willing participant, and then there are times where she has clearly said that she doesn't want to do it. How does a jury receive that sort of changing over time?
Outside the courtroom, the cultural impact of this trial is undeniable. Conversations about consent, power imbalances, and trauma are unfolding in living rooms, social media feeds, and newsrooms nationwide. For many, the case symbolizes the ongoing fight to hold influential figures accountable regardless of their fame or fortune. But the courtroom remains the ultimate arena. Here, facts will be scrutinized, memories tested, and truths debated. And while the jury wrestles with these realities, the public waits. Some eager for justice, others skeptical of the claims.
If you don't have the consent of the women or the men, as the case may be, it is illegal. But okay, we're going to argue over whether they were willing participants. It's almost like a Harvey Weinstein situation where he's going to say they willingly took drugs.
Another thing we learned about yesterday was her drug addiction. She said that she had an addiction to opiates, Errol.
They're going to say absolutely not. He drugged me against my will. Maybe there were drugs in that baby oil. Maybe in another way, but I definitely didn't consent to being drugged or to being raped or sodomized by P. Diddy.